Welcome everyone to this month's Discover Tennessee History webinar. My name is Kira Duke and I'm with our Teaching with Primary Sources program at Middle Tennessee State University. We're really excited to have you join us this afternoon for what is the fifth now in the series that we've been doing that started back in September. If you would, please go ahead and mute your mic if you've not already done that. We are recording this to share later on. You can actually find all of the recordings for this series on the Teaching with Primary Sources MTSU YouTube page. If you would locate your name in the participant list and make sure that it's showing up your first and last name, and that will just help as we kind of take attendance today and see who is there, and also help us with responding to folks in the chat box. We do want to make the session interactive. So if you would, again, go ahead and open up that chat box. Feel free to say hello, tell us where you teach at. And again, if you have questions as we're going through today's session, please drop those questions in there. All of our presenters will be responding to those. You also have the option of using the reaction buttons, and you can locate those towards the bottom of your Zoom screen. We're not doing any polling today, but we do that occasionally in some of our sessions because we try to make these as interactive as possible. And we do have a Padlet for this entire series, and so you can find all of the resources that we've been sharing in this Discover Tennessee History webinar series on this Padlet page. You can either use the link here or the QR code that's there will both take you to that Padlet. So today's session is featuring our partners at the East Tennessee Historical Society. So I'm going to turn things over to Lisa Oakley to get us started.
Thank you. And I want to thank Kira and everyone else that's part of our partnership across the state with the Discover Tennessee History Consortium. And this has been, I think, a really beneficial partnership. But the most important thing is that we're here for you all. So when we first started thinking about this series of webinars, we were at home like everyone else and thinking about, well, what can we do to still remain connected, still be relevant? And we thought, well, maybe this is one way that we can, throughout the school year, continue to be connected with you and share the resources that we have. But at that time, in all honesty, here at the East Tennessee Historical Society, we weren't really sure what we would be offering to students and what teachers would need at that time. So we kind of just had a plug out there that we'll be doing something in the gallery about content related to the gallery somehow. But we've actually gotten a little bit more maybe inspired ideas from things that you all have been doing and things that our partners have been doing during the fall and looking towards the spring. And so we're going to give you a highlight of not only some of the things we have online that are there consistently, but that we continue to try to improve on, and that we will be, as we develop some of our student segments that Layla Smallwood's going to be talking to you about later on in the session. Wave to everybody, Layla. She is in our gallery, and she's going to be talking to you a little bit about what we're beginning to play ideas with how to work with students in the classroom, but also that we're going to be producing some small brief segments with partners throughout East Tennessee and the state, so that we can start with an object or a story or a document here at the East Tennessee Historical Society and East Tennessee History Center that would relate to your curriculum, be of interest to you and your students, and then not only talk about it here, but also then visit the place where it happens, so to speak. We know how that goes. That gets everybody excited and helps make a connection and tries to make things a little bit more active than just doing a tour through the gallery. So we haven't done a lot of this yet. It's pilot ideas, so we will welcome your questions and your observations and suggestions. So we'll be working with Dave Hearns and Michael Jordan here in just a minute, and they're going to introduce you to Blount Mansion, as well as talk to you about what resources they have at Blount Mansion. And then we'll kind of conclude that segment talking about how we might partner together. It's just a concept right now, but Layla is busy already thinking about how this is going to come together, certainly over the spring, and we will be bringing things online, and they will go on our website. The website I will introduce you to is where all this will live. So anyway, the East Tennessee Historical Society, many of you all are from other parts of the state. I see familiar names and faces, but we have new friends. We are in downtown Knoxville, at the East Tennessee History Center, which is right on Gay Street on the main thoroughfare in downtown Knoxville. And we're only about 4 blocks from Blunt Mansion, so we share student groups during the school year. And so we're great partners to begin with. But at any rate, we're really glad that you're here with us virtually today. And this is really nice because we can introduce who we are to folks across the state. And we're able to do this through the support of Humanities Tennessee. The website is supported by that. We have a teacher in residence during the summer that is all sponsored by Humanities Tennessee as well. And I encourage you to check them out. They have all kinds of grant projects that you can apply for. They have teacher awards that they have grant funds for. And so we're just really privileged to work with them and to work with everyone else that's part of Discover Tennessee History. So again, the East Tennessee Historical Society is part of a history center with all kinds of primary sources, and our Museum of East Tennessee History covers basically the frontier period all the way through to World War II fairly thoroughly and well. And so that's what we'll be kind of referring to today, but particularly in the frontier section. So we're all about early statehood, frontier, with a lot of what we're going to be featuring today. But just think that even though we might be featuring one piece of content, one partnership, this is kind of directing towards what we're thinking about doing in the future. So make suggestions on that too. If there's something that you really wonder, you know, I'm having a hard time doing this in my classroom. Do you have anything that would relate to this aspect of Tennessee history? So please share that as well. So welcome. We're thrilled to have you with us today and look forward to the day that you can come and visit us with your student groups, or, you know, if you want to take a trip across the state and come to the History Center, we are open to the public right now. We have, you know, all the safety measures in place. So of course we can't have lots, you know, student groups aren't traveling here, but if you do come through the region and want to stop, we would love to have you. And you're welcome to make image, you know, photographs, video, that sort of thing. Just let me know if you want to come to the museum and capture some stories yourself. We welcome that, and we'd be glad to facilitate some of that. So use this as your inspiration, as well as working with some of the museums in your own neighborhood. I'm going to shut up now. I'll have another opportunity to introduce some things. Again, we're going to be working with Layla Smallwood. She and I here at the East Tennessee Historical Society are ready to work with you and your students virtually. And then Michael Jordan and Dave Hearns are just right down the street at Blunt Mansion, basically where the state began. That's territorial capital. And I think I'll turn it to Dave first and let him kind of conduct it from there between he and Michael. And we'll find out what Blunt Mansion's doing right now, what they have to offer, and then I'll kind of tie it together with how we might work together in the future. Dave, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Forgive me for not being super dressed up. It's freezing cold here at the moment. You know, it's these 18th century houses. Well, Blunt Mansion is the home of our first and only territorial governor, William Blount. From an education standpoint, you know, Blount features in the Tennessee history standards for the whole state. And so one of our big here from across the state. Pandemic started, video virtual tour was on the menu for us to help teachers talk about Blount and talk about the founding of the state of Tennessee. So at the moment, I'm in our kitchen here on site, and just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we're working on, are a series of videos and lesson plans to talk about a wide variety of topics, but specifically one of the more recent things we've been doing are specific offerings having to do with the enslaved peoples of the mansion. So it's a very timely topic, and I'm very proud to say Lisa had a lot to do with doing a lot of the research that we had, and was very groundbreaking research in the late 90s. But we're trying to expand on that and expand on the way that we talk about the enslaved peoples of the mansion and the way that we are including them in the day-to-day story. At the Recently, the thing that we're focusing on are physical reminders. And I don't know if anybody saw the article that was done recently, but we found fingerprints in some of the bricks here on site. And that gives us a perfect physical reminder to base our, and Michael's put it up there for you to see, a perfect physical indication of the enslaved peoples that were here on site. And so we are using this as a catalyst to create video content, to create content for teachers to use in the classroom, and also to spark more research, which will drive more content down the road. So Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can. I think that this is an area that we're really excited in partnering in, because as you can see the scene right now on the screen, that's ETHS education. Some of y'all might be able to see that. I know we have it on speaker view, but you can go out to your gallery if you need to find it. But we do have objects in the gallery that come from the archaeological investigation. You see the small pieces that are in the exhibit case. Those archaeological artifacts came from the excavation of the slave quarters at Blount Mansion. And so this is an example of where we'll start with artifacts that are in our collection or in our exhibit, and then be able to go out to Michael and Dave and let them talk about where those things came from and how it fits to the story there. And Dave, anything you want to follow up on that?
Well, the amount of artifacts that were taken out of the ground, not 15, 20 feet behind me on the other side of this chimney, really were a window into the lives of the enslaved peoples of the mansion. So there's a lot that we can say about those that show, basically we can talk about day-to-day life. And so, there's pottery, there's beads, there's a lot of different items that we can talk about that really put a human face on people who, probably died sometime in the early 19th century. Yeah. So
it makes it relevant to the students, and it might not be that it ties clearly and directly to something that you're, to the wording and the standard, but just to place something in context and show the students, and do a little bit of artifact reading, but just getting a sense and a context through, seeing a place. If we can't physically get there, which we would love for you to physically get here, but if that can't, we're going to try to make it come to life as much as possible.
Yeah, and any kind of connection that you can make for your students, that is between the life that the students lead today and the lives of people in whatever time period you're studying, always is going to make it stick, make the subject stick that much more. So.
And I know that Michael, was wanting to kind of highlight some of the other things, but, let me just say that one of the things that we at the East Tennessee Historical Society feel that's one of our goals and one of our missions is to connect people, not only that they come to the museum, but connect them to historical sites, organizations, family groups, museums across the region, so they can start here and go wherever in the region that will help make that personal, that story. And so we hope to be able to continue that mission through the things we do virtually. So this is just kind of a snippet. We don't know yet what this will look like, but it'll have both components, what we have at the East Tennessee Historical Society and Center. And Layla's going to talk to you a little bit more here towards the end of our visit together. And she'll be talking to you how we've already started pulling some lessons together. And so just imagine that it'll be a twofer. And we'll have a segment up that'll be both at the museum and at Blount Mansion, featuring the story of the enslaved peoples, and how we've documented that story, and maybe even about the Constitution and about the other things that you all have and offer at Blount Mansion. And Dave, I didn't know if you and Michael wanted to highlight some of the things that you all.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, let me share a screen with you here. My name is Michael. I'm the Director of Marketing and Public Relations at Blount Mansion. So Blount Mansion, as Dave said, it's a circa 1792 house museum in downtown Knoxville. Was built for William Blount. He was a signer of the U.S. Constitution from North Carolina, and this is from his Instagram feed on the day that they signed the Constitution. Just kidding. There's his signature on the signature page of the Constitution. So Blount was appointed by George Washington to manage the federal territory that became Tennessee. And he had to make peace with all the Native American tribes that were there so Native Americans could come in. So we're able to tell a story about the negotiations that happened between the settlers and Native Americans. But the thing that really sets Blount Mansion apart is its place as the birthplace of Tennessee. And this wooden desk that we have in Governor Blount's office is the actual desk that the Tennessee Constitution was signed on in 1796. And bear in mind that Tennessee will be 225 years old this June 1st. That's the 225th anniversary of the admission of the state into the Union. And so that's why we're a National Historic Landmark. What you would see if you were to come is beautiful spaces like this. And we tried to do virtual tours, and the technology just fails us, and there's nothing like a Zoom tour to bore the heck out of a student. So we quickly realized that we needed to up our game and create online offerings that would allow teachers to build their own experiences. And by the way, too, we have the only garden in downtown Knoxville. So Blount Mansion is a beautiful place to be at any time of year. But what we have added virtually, let me share this with you. Sorry, I've got too many screens open. Here we go. This is our website, and it's just blountmansion.org, and I will put that in the chat in just a minute. If you go over to the education tab and click on resources, we've started doing our own video presentations that can give you, here's a 20-minute virtual guided tour, but we're also building artifact videos. And Lisa and Layla will be glad to work with y'all to create partnered videos that are professionally produced that talk about things you can see at ETHS, and you can see something that's related to it at Blount Mansion and how they come together. So here's a video about a reverse glass painting of George Washington, or a fascinating jug that's really rare. But if you look above it here, it says Constitution Connection. And this ties specifically to our relevance to the Constitution as the only home of a Constitution signer in Tennessee or anywhere outside the original 13 states. And just today, we added a video where Stuart Harris, who's a constitutional law professor in Knoxville, does a 4-minute talk about the Constitution for students 4th grade and up. So we're working hard to build content that is accessible to students. And one last point that I'll make is if you go to the history tab, there's in family members and enslaved persons. And if you click on enslaved persons, this is something we're really proud of. This is based on Lisa Oakley's early 1990s research on the enslaved people who lived and worked at Blount Mansion. So we've had an artist create conjectural silhouettes, kind of modeled after what Mount Vernon has done. And you can learn about each of the people that Lisa's research uncovered. And we're going to work this into our exhibits and our programming too. So there are, this is a way that we can connect documents and the research that Lisa did to the actual place, and then the artifacts that are at ETHS. And we also have brand new high definition scans of the original 18th century documents that the research was based on. So we envision maybe even being able to create virtual activities where students can look at source documents and learn how they lead historians to write things like this and understand what they see at the site.
And, I think what's really important for all of us to realize is that there are a lot of museums and historical sites, state parks, organizations across the state and in your own community who have resources that perhaps they might not have staff that's developed the materials that they have at Blount Mansion. Blount Mansion is an important and significant state level site and national level site. But, think about reaching out. Again, you've seen some of the things that Blount Mansion's been able to develop. Not everybody has those already on their sites, or they might not have the staff to be able to do that, but perhaps there's a way that you can go and capture, a story through even with your iPhone or with making photographs, share it back with that organization and with that museum and see how you can grow something. So I think y'all have done an incredible job. How many full-time staff do you have?
Well, now we have 2.
Now you've got 2.
Yeah, we had 1.5 up until January 1st, and now we have 2 full-time staff.
Yeah. And so congratulations. I mean, great resources. And Let's just give a second to see if you have a question, because they might not be able to stay on for the whole program. But if anybody has a question for Dave or for Michael or for Blunt Mansion, go ahead and place it in the chat. And we'll make sure that we get that question answered, or we can forward questions on as well. And we do have the website put up. Michael got that put up. And again, we look forward to in the future kind of telling that extending that story about the enslaved peoples to where we have primary source material from the History Center paired with the visit to Blunt Mansion, so that the kids can study an artifact, study some documents, and then pairing that with actually going and seeing the kitchen and, introducing the story of Isabella and, Nan and Sal and Cupid and, the folks that lived there and made Blunt Mansion work and function. So anyway, anything else that y'all want to share with us before we go on to looking at some website stuff?
Well, we're always interested in feedback from teachers. So anything that teachers have to that want us to know, would like us to create, would like us to do, we're always listening. And so feedback is very, very important to us. And we're not idle on it. When somebody has something to say, we generally try to incorporate it or create it.
And the other point to make is that this Blunt Mansion is where Tennessee starts. So our story is part of your standards. It's 5th grade, 2nd semester in particular, but the whole story of Tennessee relates to Blunt Mansion. So it's relevant to everything you teach statewide. It's not just for Knox County students.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Dave's in the kitchen. We actually shot another video just a couple of months ago, how to cook a historic dish in the kitchen. And we have a recipe that we can share with teachers and an easy set of ingredients. You can actually cook it with your students, or in the case of a school down the street from us, they sent it home with the kids for Thanksgiving. So the kids got to eat it at school, and then they went home and cooked it with their parents. So we're excited about ways that we can make history accessible and tangible for kids too.
Well, I thank you all both so much. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of us in historic homes and in museums, kept thinking, oh, well, one day we'll do this, and one day we'll do this video, and one day we'll do this virtual whatever. Well, that one day hit real soon. And so I think y'all been able to pull together some really creative ideas, and thank y'all for your hard work. So
any questions?
I didn't see anything posted, but we'll relay questions if there are any. And folks, I'm sure will be interested in seeing what we pull together. So thank you all so much for being with us.
No worries.
Thanks for the opportunity, Lisa.
All right, y'all take care.
You too.
Okay. So this is just an example of one of our partners that we work with through the Historical Society. And now I'm going to just take a minute to show you some of our online materials. One of the last sessions, or the State Museum session, that was just incredibly done about teaching hard history in the classroom, which I just want to, I think all the sessions have been incredible that we've offered, but I really appreciate the hard work and the teachers' input on that session. If you didn't have a chance to see it, we have recorded them. But one of the teachers mentioned, actually, I was tickled. She mentioned our website as having information on Tennessee history. If you're looking for content, if you're looking for resources for your students. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everything functions okay. And I'm going to go out. I have to clear that out. And I'm pulling up the Padlet. So I hope everybody can see that. And what I'm going to be doing is we have under our session here, just about everything we're going to be referring to is on the Padlet. And so you'll see me kind of navigating through the Padlet because I just want everybody to get familiar with it. But just to begin with, I wanted to show you the Teach Tennessee History Education webpage. And so I'm going to click on that. And this is a webpage that we have been developing. It actually started many years ago in the early 2000s as a grant project the Teaching American History grants that we were able to work with school districts here in East Tennessee. We had teachers developing materials. In fact, that's where Kira and I first worked together. She worked with us on our first Teaching American History grant. And so teachers were starting to put materials up on a website for that. And then about 2014, we took that website and really made it user-friendly for all teachers across the state to use. And Rebecca Bird from Sevier County is kind of the webmaster on that. She's the person that kind of keeps it up to date and functioning. And so every summer she works on it. And 2 summers ago, we developed, and she worked on what we call our Tennessee history text. And I'll just open that up. It's in 2 sections and it's not real pretty. It's basically a PDF. We have some introductory pages to it. And this is through the support of Humanities Tennessee. We're very grateful to them. We have a table of contents, and then it just starts out, Volume 1, Prehistoric Tennessee. It's got footnotes so you can go find more information from museums, from the Student Blue Book that the Tennessee State Library and Archives has also developed, which Rebecca edited for them. And it's, like I said, it's not real attractive, but this is a source that you can use to go and get your bearings with Tennessee history. And it's all coordinated. She spent time on the things that are in the standards. So it might seem like it jumps around a little bit, or it might be abbreviated on one thing, but that's because there's less time spent on that in the standards. So just wanted to make sure that everybody realized that this great source is there. And we're thankful for it, and thankful for her hard work on that. I'm gonna have to move this down so I can actually see where I am. And so you have 2 sections of that, and simply on our website, it's just Tennessee history text. We always try to figure out, well, what should we name things? And we always come down to the fact that, you know what, we should just name it what it obviously is. And also our artifact lessons, we're going to find out more about our artifact cards when Layla works with you all here in a little bit, and they're found on this link, artifact lessons. You just click on it and go down the page, and we have artifact cards for you. And she also has a link on the Padlet that goes directly to these. And she's going to tell you some more about these shortly, but they can be done, used. Again, they cover a lot of different content. The artifacts are objects. The images on each card are objects from our gallery space. So some of these things will have these little videos that we're developing to go with, but they can be good for center work, for extension activities, any number of things. You can probably imagine things beyond what I could on how they work. And as you look, they go all the way up to the 1960s. So that's also on our website, just under artifact lessons. The workshop materials is kind of a hodgepodge, because this is the landing page I use when I do teacher workshops to go back and forth with lessons, activities. So we've got them divided out by era. And as you can see, they're kind of random. And that's because, you know, it'll be a lesson I'm doing for a workshop for someone else that is kind of a random piece. But go through and take a look at some of these lessons. Rebecca has done a great job of watching me do something in a session, and then she'll develop a lesson plan for it. She said, you know what, they can't all take you to the class with them. So it's got to be able to be replicated. So she's done a good job, and also created some things. And I know that, I don't know if she'll have a chance to talk about it right now, but Layla was looking at the Frontier Figures bell ringer for some of our lessons, so that we're going to be doing virtually. So anyway, the teacher workshop is just something to explore and take a look at. You can look here on the left. We also have things about buying historic objects, teaching history with children's books. So it is random. The last thing that I will mention here before we talk about gap lessons are our curriculum materials. So they are by era. And let me just click on American Revolution. There is an essay for all of the items that actually in the prior standards that were even more detailed than these on Tennessee topics and people. We developed an essay that addressed most of the main people and places and events that are mentioned in the Tennessee history standards, or I should say, in the social studies standards that relate to Tennessee. So we also kind of let these essays inspire the teacher text. These are just broken out into an essay format. So browse through those, and we also pulled some of the lesson activities from that workshop page to the different eras that they relate to. So each one of these landing pages for any one of these eras should have some interesting things to be, to think of, to throw into a lesson you're doing. Or we had to actually develop a map that we could use. Sometimes we have to create something because we can't figure out how to do it, can't find it somewhere else, or having a challenge in the classroom. I'm sure that you understand that. So just take a look at these when you're coming up to a new era that you're working with, or a new topic, need background information, go to our teacher text. If you want to see if there's something more specific or a lesson on it or a new idea, then go out to the curriculum materials and to the appropriate era. And then we also were thinking during the spring that there's going to be a challenge at the beginning of the school year with gaps, with the students that were out of the classroom in the spring. What maybe did they not catch up to coming into a new year, especially with some of the curriculum changes. So Rebecca made it kind of pull some materials together here by topic that will again pull material from other places on our website. And plus she has provided an answer key. So you can kind of use the materials here on this gap lessons, gap learning and gap lessons. These are things that aren't like to inspire you and you figure out how to do it. She's tried to make these into activities you can actually immediately use in your classroom. And as you can see, it goes through all the different eras. So that's our website. There's also some information about National History Day because we sponsor the East Tennessee Regional Competition. So if you want any more information on any of that, you can let me know. I want to take just a couple more minutes. Let me go up to and again, the navigation is all just right here on the left. If you have questions about any of that, we can answer those for you at the end, or just put it in the chat box and we'll get back to it. Towards the bottom here, we have more information on History Day, but also we link out to the Historical Society's website for information about our upcoming workshops that we sponsor, as well as have links to partner workshops that we're involved in. And that link will actually show you, there's a whole other website for the East Tennessee Historical Society that shows you events and programs, information about our museum. Education is only a very small part of that, but this link is where you find our student program information as well. So we have a lot online to offer, and I know that that's kind of confusing, but just to go back to the Padlet, you can see again that both those websites, this is the Historical Society's website that has our student program information, and then this is our teachtnhistory.org website that I just showed you. The last thing that I want to mention, and then Layla will talk to you about our Facebook page. The other thing that we did when we were all working from home remotely, trying to figure out, number one, how are we going to connect as a staff and work? Well, we all got introduced to Zoom. And so we thought, well, this Zoom thing is kind of interesting. Will it help us connect with our members and connect with the public? And again, like I said earlier, one of our main missions is to open people up to all the historical resources in East Tennessee, not just come to the museum, not just become a member and get our publications, but actually go visit and go learn about the stories in East Tennessee where they happen. And so we decided to Zoom through East Tennessee. So we did these little virtual visits. I don't know if y'all know how many people it takes to put on a Zoom program, but at least 3. So we have, at that time, there were about 4 of us as a senior staff that were doing things. So we all got on the computers and we all had different jobs. They were also Facebook Live at the same time. And we just started visiting sites and museums across the region. And they're not, high art, but they're a lot of fun. Sometimes the sound quality is kind of off, but you can see that we have quite a number of them. Whoops, didn't mean to go all the way out. But you can see we've been to the birthplace of country music. We've been to, we did our Marching to Victory suffrage exhibit that's here. We did the Craighead Jackson House, which is part of Blunt Mansion's campus there. We've been to a lot of different places. We also did our black and white exhibit, and I don't know if we have it posted yet, but we just have a lot of fun stuff. I was trying to see if I can get back out. Well, I lost it. But at any rate, we have a lot of other things there too. And there's actually a couple of very good National History Day documentaries that have won national medals. And so we have those on there. It's just some random stuff, but we had all this random stuff that we had stored away. And we thought, well, we'll put that up on the YouTube channel, and we'll also create and put our Zoom visits out there as well. So those might be fun in your classroom. Most of those are about, as you can see, they're about 40 minutes, but some of that's introduction. So you can kind of zoom past it, if you will. And then the end is usually question answer. So the actual heart to the visit is usually about 30 minutes. So I wanted to make you aware of those. And again, going back to the Padlet, everything is right there for you. And I think what I will do from there is kind of get reoriented a little bit. I'm going to stop my share for just a second. And I'm going to introduce Layla Smallwood. Layla is our education program manager, and she has been here all of, has it been 2 weeks now?
A little over a week. I started on the 4th. So.
And she already has developed a program that will be done tomorrow, a virtual program with one of our elementary schools. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about that process. So I just want to say congratulations and thank you. You've done an incredible job with that. Is there anything you want to clarify that I have talked about, or anything that you want to refer to that we've already talked about before you get started? And then I'll share here in a minute to show the things that you want to share.
Yeah, I think we're just going to go straight into what we're doing. I do want to warn you guys that I'm working off of 2 computers because I'm reading the chat on my own computer and then working off of the iPad so I can move you around. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm reading your chat messages. So just kind of hang with me on that. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep. Awesome. Okay. So like Lisa said, my name is Layla Smallwood. I'll be working with the school programming here. I'm super excited to be with you all today. Thanks for powering through the afternoon and being with us. So we're focusing on what I'm talking to you about today is school programming that's standard specific at first. So we're going to look at standard specific programming, and then some stuff that we're going to offer virtually that's going to be aligned to standards. You can pick and choose what you want. So our main goals in this, like Lisa said earlier, we want to make virtual learning fun, engaging, and accessible. That's what we're looking for. How can we make this work for students and for teachers in the virtual world and in the in-person world? So the activity I'm sharing with you today, like Lisa said, we're going to do this tomorrow, so we'll see how it goes. We're going to be working with 4th grade students. They're so much fun. So the activity I'm sharing with you guys today is for a 4th grade classroom, a local 4th grade classroom. So we're going to go through this activity, not all the way, but I will show you some of the strategies, and we're just going to kind of talk through it and then move on to a few virtual programming ideas. So the standards we're working with, they gave us 2. We're just kind of picking from the 2 what we're going to talk about based on our museum stuff and based on the Tennessee connection. So we're working with a standard that asks students to identify the major causes of the War of 1812. We're also working with a standard that asks students to know about the significance or point to the significant parts of Jackson's presidency, like Indian removal, like the Trail of Tears, and keeping the Union together. So those are the 3 pieces that we're kind of looking at with this. The standards, as you guys know, they usually have like 19 different bullet points under one standard, but we're just going to focus on like the broader piece here. So with these standards, we're going to start with these students and ask them to look at 2 images. So Lisa's going to share 2 images with you guys. This is on the Padlet linked as well. It's a Canva document, so you can look at it, you can print it, whatever you need to do, you have access to it without logging in. So what I want you guys to do, we're going to do just a basic, I always do this, a see no wonder activity, because I say this every time. It's something everybody can come to the table and do. So your students may not know who these people are, but they can tell us what they see, right? They can come no matter what their ability level is, no matter what grade level we're teaching, they can tell you what they see on the screen. I'm sorry, guys, I'm a hand talker. I'm struggling. So on this screen here in the chat box, let's focus on this first top picture here. What do you think your students would notice first? He's very thin, no smile, the hat. Are we looking at the first or the second picture? A very serious man. Yeah, he's very stoic, right? Almost, yeah, he has a long, skinny face. Good. Fancy dress. Yeah, good. So these are all things our students can kind of pick out immediately. Now let's look at that second picture, the picture on the bottom. What do you think your students would notice first? The hat, yeah, good. Awesome hat, I know. His clothes, right? He has some kind of Native American clothing, like a frontiersman clothing. Animals, the dogs, good. So these are all things that our students would notice first, right? The rifle and the gun, yes, good eye. It's a color image versus the black and white. Yeah, there might have been a color JPEG for the top one. I didn't find it. Good. So we have sideburns. Good. High school students would definitely notice that. Good. So we see a uniform up top. All right, good. So we obviously know who these two men are. I'm sure you guys are familiar with these two men, but your students might not know, right? So we did the C part of this. We've observed the picture. We haven't brought them in any background knowledge. The no, now, you know who these men are. Put it in the chat box for me. Jackson and Crockett, correct. We're talking about two men who have Tennessee connections today. So our students may not know this. We may have, if you guys have done this before, which I'm sure you have, that no column might be pretty slim. We may not have much there yet, but we can always go back and edit at the end of the lesson. That's the great thing about checking for understanding activities. Good. So what questions, because we have the see, know, and wonder, what questions do you think your students might have about either one of these pictures? Didn't these guys not like each other? Okay. Your students may not know that, but that's a good question. We're going to kind of get into that. Why is he dressed in buckskin? Good. Let's see, anything else? Any other questions we can think of? Somebody mentioned the military garb and the top, like that fancy garb up top, the outfit. Why are they important? Good. Why are we talking about these two men? Good. So yeah, this is an activity that I'm going to use with these fourth grade students to kind of get them into this topic. We're going to talk about Andrew Jackson and David Crockett and how they are both intertwined, starting with the War of 1812 all the way up through Indian removal. We see their lives kind of intertwined in their political decisions and the way they butt heads and disagree. Good. So we go all the way through this chart, the See, Know, Wonder chart on the second page there. And this is linked on the Padlet as well. This is something you could tell your students to draw. You can give them a version of this on the whiteboard, tell them to write it down, or you could print this off, whatever's easiest for you. So after we do that, we might use some probing questions for that wonder. What jobs do you think these two men have based on their clothing? Why do you think they're important? Stuff like that. So we'll be trying to use similar questions to gauge that prior knowledge and gauge that ability level and grade level understanding so we can kind of guide the rest of the lesson throughout these activities. We've also created this Venn diagram here. I'm a crazy organized note taker. I have to have every single thing like written down. So if my students need that, I like to provide that for them. So while we're talking, you know, Andrew Jackson, we know he was a president. Maybe your students say that. We can write president there. I said they're both significant to Tennessee. They could write that in the middle. David Crockett was a frontiersman. We can kind of go through the lesson and they can add what they need throughout if they need to go back to it later on for studying, for talking about another topic, things like that. So just something for them to organize their thoughts, because I'm always about organization. So after analyzing the two images using the See No Wonder and the Venn diagram, if your students feel like they need it, we would briefly go into their roles during the War of 1812. We discussed how Andrew Jackson was a general, David Crockett was a soldier. They're both fighting in these battles, and their relationship also after the war regarding policies on Indian removal. So we'd go into that whole relationship and how it intertwines. So during this relationship, when we talk about the War of 1812, we would feature a few artifacts. So here's a piece that you might see when we did this. You can, we'll get closer to it. We do our lessons and stuff like that. But that is actually a flag from the Battle of Horseshoe Bend that was flown by the 39th Tennessee Regiment. So we'd show artifacts like that to connect that these people were fighting alongside David Crockett and alongside Andrew Jackson, to make those connections to people and have them see an artifact that they can pull from. So we also, after kind of talking about their relationships, their connections, or while we're doing that, excuse me, we've created a bingo card. So this bingo card, I have 4 different variations. It's linked on the Padlet. That's just so you don't have 50 kids getting a bingo at once. You can have a little bit of variety within. But as we're doing this activity tomorrow with students and talking about Andrew Jackson and talking about David Crockett and how they're important from the War of 1812 up until the end of Jackson's presidency, up until removal when David Crockett goes to Texas, right? So they're going to have this bingo sheet that they can say actively engaged with and mark off things as they're going and just kind of organize their thoughts a little bit more, just so they know keywords as we're going through. So all these bingo cards have the same words on them. It's just, like I said, a different variation. So you're not hearing bingo 100 times in 1 minute. So this is something that we're going to be doing tomorrow, just kind of to keep up with engagement as we're doing this lesson. We're planning to introduce the Trail of Tears as a result of Indian removal, but we're not, this is only a 45-minute lesson we have with 4th graders. So anybody who teaches understands 45 minutes is gone so quickly. You can blink and it's gone, right? So we're planning to introduce that, but the Trail of Tears as a result of the Indian Removal Act, but we're not going to go into that. We're going to leave that to teachers, and that's up to you too. If you want to do programming with us, we're happy to tailor it to your standards and what you would like us to teach and focus on. So like I said, during that programming, we'll be showing images of Crockett and Jackson and encouraging students to analyze those images and ask and answer their own questions throughout. The charts and note catchers are just there to organize their thoughts, maybe go back to them if they have a test or to study or to review, things like that. And the bingo sheet is just there to keep them engaged. But these are all linked on our Padlet. In addition to all these activities, like I said, we'll be featuring the artifacts of this over here. We also, I'm going to turn you guys, have David Crockett's rifle Betsy right here that we'll be featuring in the activity tomorrow. So there are always ways to work in artifacts in these lessons. Let's see. So we're happy, like I said, to offer these virtual programmings for you teachers, using our artifacts from the museum, using documents, primary sources, things like that. If you have a question about a specific standard you want taught or a cost, or if we have this in our gallery, if we have it in any of the exhibitions, just send us an email. I'm going to put our emails in the chat box after I finish up here. Okay. So another thing that we're going to do, and Lisa talked about this a lot already, so I won't go too much into it, but we're going to do virtual field trips and partner with local institutions and sites and kind of investigate, whether it's an artifact or a site here, kind of investigate that local history piece. We're going to be offering teachers and students virtual field trip programming to explore sites and artifacts throughout. We're hoping to create investigative short 5 to 10 minute videos for you guys, because who can watch a 40-minute video every day? I can't stay focused for that long, and I know our students can't either. So something quick and short you can show your students that fits to your standards. We would like to make these as interactive as possible. We're going to use artifacts in our gallery and kind of wheel you around, go behind the scenes and show you these pieces, link in primary source documents, link in physical sites, so material culture like landscapes, things like that. We can bring in for you and your students to make this virtual. All this is going to be, those virtual field trips are going to be free on our website. I'm going to do it on Facebook Live a lot of times, and then we'll put it on our YouTube page and also on our Tennessee teachtnhistory.org page. So that's something you can use as you need in your class, when it fits to your curriculum, things like that. So we would love to know what artifacts and standards you'd like us to feature as we pilot this new program. So please give us some feedback in that survey at the end and let us know what'll work for your curriculum. So the final thing I want to share with you guys is I'll be sharing a few fun posts each week. Like I said, those artifact posts, it'll all kind of revolve around those virtual field trips and those artifact posts. And we'll have like a post at the end of the week to bring it all together. So last week, we're not starting this program until next Monday. So last week we decided to do something kind of fun and talk about the Battle of New Orleans. It was January 8th. We were commemorating that day. So we did a handout here. And this is what I'm thinking a lot of our Friday pull it all together for the artifact and virtual field trip investigations will look like. We'll have some context here, a fun fact or a did you know or way students can interact with sources. And then on the next page, we have an activity. So this activity involves students looking at the lyrics and listening to the music to the song, The Battle of New Orleans, and considering a few questions as they go through. So something you can just add in to kind of engage students a little bit more, allow them to have some autonomy in the classroom by listening to these lyrics and listening to the music and reading the lyrics, things like that. So I think these are going to be kind of, our posts on Fridays are going to be kind of similar to that, and they're going to all revolve around those artifact posts, those virtual field trip posts. So be looking for those on our ETHS Facebook page starting next week. Let's see. So if you have suggestions or topics, like I said, please send us suggestions. Please let us know what will work for you in your curriculum and how we can better serve you and your students throughout this spring semester. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us today. Like I said, I'll drop my email and Lisa's email in the chat box for you all if you want to contact us. And please be sure to complete the survey. Give us some feedback about your programming, wants, and needs so we can know how to better serve you and your students this spring. Thanks.
And thank you, Layla. You did an incredible job with that. And I mean, she basically did that in a week, pulling together the ideas. But that's what bringing together educators that you all have been having to do this. You've been having to figure out, how do I best bridge this screen gap, this screen barrier between my students and myself, and with them, with each other. And so we're really trying to kind of mix it up. We did work with teachers at the elementary school that is going to be visiting with us. And so one of the keys to this is that they're going to be active while we're doing what we're doing. They have the outline, they have the materials, so that they're helping to facilitate things in the classroom. So please realize that if you want something to be successful, working with one of us as an institution or anyone else that you're inviting into your classroom to do a virtual program, see how you might be able to work together. Be aware of what it is that they're doing. And maybe you can think of a graphic organizer or something that the students can be doing. The teachers are actually going to work with their students with whiteboards because they have hybrid classrooms. So they have some of the kids sitting in the room and then some of the kids virtual. So they're having the kids that are virtual to actually, they'll do their work and hold it up. So the other kid, or if they have a question or an answer or something, they use whiteboards, individual whiteboards to share. So, think about how you can make this one effort on the part of everyone. So the Venn diagram was actually the teacher's suggestion, and they're going to have, we provided the graphic, and the kids will have individual ones, and the teacher's also going to have a master at the front of the class. So the teacher role, we depend on you all to help us make it the best we can be. And we also know that this is a pilot. Most of us are just trying things for the first time. But obviously we are here to respond to the things that you may need. And for us as a partner in this consortium, We have museum and primary source materials. We also have connections to the region, and we're happy to complement what you might have offered through another institution as well. But everyone that's a part of the Discover Tennessee History, I hope that you've gotten a sense that we all have a lot to offer, and we're just interested in helping you however we can. And on the website, she mentioned some of the artifacts like the flag and like the rifle. She gave you a link on the Padlet as well as on our website on those artifact cards. Each of those there's a card for. We have a card for the flag. We have a card for the rifle. So, you know, that might be something you can immediately do is go and see how you can best use those. We have hard copies of those. If you're in the region and want to pick up a set of hard copies, I need to get a couple of cases of them, or if you would like for us to get them to you. We do have some hard copy sets of those, thanks to a grant from Comcast that we're able to work with. So I think that kind of gets at the main things we wanted to share. Please, if you have questions for us or anything that you want to suggest for the good of the group, please include it in the chat. We've talked a lot. We've shared a lot of perhaps ideas. Layla just posted our email addresses. She also posted the link for the teachtnhistory.org website going directly to the artifact cards. The Padlet is up for all the institutions that we've been having our webinar series. We all have a date with our links there. But please, when you find something you like off of the Padlet from any of us, bookmark it so that you don't have to always go back to the Padlet, and it can be something that you can go to easily from your homepage that you work from. Any questions from anyone? Or Kira, anything you can think to add to it? And we all want to thank Kira Duke. She's our producer. She's our mistress of ceremonies for all of our webinars. So we just appreciate everybody so much. And we appreciate everybody coming out to join us today. So anything else that anybody that's participated today or any of the other partners, we do have just a minute. If anybody wants to throw in there to something that I might have missed or that you want to say that relates. Well, Kira got a woohoo.
Well, we do want to again thank everybody for joining us today. And again, as we move forward in thinking about what type of programming that our Discover Tennessee History Collaborative can offer for this year, if you guys have suggestions, we would love to hear that. Everyone's kind of in a wait and see mode as far as thinking about whether we'll be able to do in-person events later in the year, which we're hopeful that we'll be able to get back to that sooner rather than later, but we're very mindful of wanting to do what's safest for everyone. So again, if you guys have suggestions, things you would like to see, please let us know. We would love to have that feedback from you. So let me just share a couple of things with you as we wrap up, because I know we'll be very mindful of everyone's time. I know you've had a long day already. So again, just a reminder, you have the Padlet there that has been referenced. And again, that's a great resource for going back and finding the materials for all of the sessions that we've been doing. We do have 2 more sessions coming up in this series. Next month on February the 9th, we'll be doing a session, Tennessee State Parks will be presenting and sharing some information about the New Deal and some of the parks that have great New Deal resources. And then the final one in the series is going to be offered with our Teaching with Primary Sources at MTSU program. And we're going to be focusing on the Trail of Tears through Tennessee. So if that's a topic that you're interested in, please, I encourage you to go and register using the Google form there. And we can drop that link in the chat box if anyone needs it. I've already put the survey link in the chat box if you want to scroll back up to find that, or we can re-add it again if you missed it. If everyone would take a moment to fill out that survey for us, it will be very helpful for Lisa and Layla and the partners as they think about kind of what you guys took away from today, and definitely help as we think about it in planning for resources and programming in the future. And again, we just want to thank you guys for taking the time to join us today. We really do appreciate it. And we hope that you'll be able to join us for the last 2 sessions in this series. And don't forget, of course, if you missed one of the earlier ones, you can go back and watch those on the Teaching with Primary Sources MTSU YouTube page. And we'll drop that link in the chat box as well. I'm going to end our recording. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to stick around and you can ask those of any of our partners. Thanks, guys.
And I